Hi, Tiger Craven Neely, a teacher 15 years in the closet, 15 years out of the closet. And I'm making these videos sharing a child's LGBT book that I think would be great in your classroom. Also talking about my experiences being a gay teacher out of the closet in the classroom. And then also talking about some LGBT laws, more specifically, mostly in California. I've been reading books out loud in my hands. Today I want to do something different. I want to read a book using a slideshow. So I'm going to pull up my slideshow. This is Prince and Knight, written by Daniel Haack. I hope I'm saying your name right, Haack. Illustrated by Stevie Lewis. What I want to do is read the book with you and then go back and comment on some of the illustrations regarding LGBT issues and also apply some laws to that. Prince and Knights. Once upon a time in a kingdom far, far from here, and I added the extra fars, lived a charming prince who was handsome and sincere. You have some rhymes there. His parents knew that soon it would be time he took the throne. But with a kingdom so grand, the prince could not rule alone. So the three of them set out and traveled far and wide on a quest to find the prince a kind and worthy bride. The prince met many ladies, and he made them all swoon. Ah! But it was soon clear that he was singing a different tune. Thank you, he told his parents. I appreciate that you tried, but I'm looking for something different in a partner by my side. Oh, they're sad. But while the royals were away, their land faced quite a scare from a dragon fast approaching, breathing fire everywhere. All the villagers ran in fear. Even the soldiers hid and fled. This vicious beast is far too great. We must retreat or we'll be dead. The prince heard the dreadful news and he raced home with all his might to protect his precious realm. The prince was ready for a fight. And there he is on his valiant steed. Alas, before you fear our prince had to face the beast alone, along on horseback came a knight, cloaked in armor that brightly shone. The dragon charged upon our heroes, thinking it had already won. But the knight had a bold idea and raised his shield to face the sun. The glare hit the shining metal, blinding the dragon's fiery eyes. But it was what the prince did next that really caught it by surprise. The prince had climbed atop the dragon and tied a rope around its head. He wrapped the cord around the neck and down the body like a thread. The plan had worked. The dragon was caught. Its body was tied and bound. But the prince was up high. But the prince up high had lost his grip and was falling to the ground. There he is falling. The knight below jumped on his horse, and they began to race. The prince was caught and free from harm, held in the knight's embrace. You saved my life. You saved mine. they said to one another, and in a flash, to each it felt there simply was no other. The knight took off his helmet to reveal his handsome face. And as they gazed into each other's eyes, their hearts began to race. As the villagers returned, it became clear to those around that the prince's one true love had at last been surely found. The king and queen had come back too and were overwhelmed with joy. We have finally found someone who is perfect for our boy. And on the two men's wedding day, the air filled with cheer and laughter, for the prince and his shining knight would live happily ever after. All right, what a wonderful story. Just want to go back and make some comments. Excuse me, wonderful cover page. Kingdom, prince, troubles. There he is, looking for a wife. Something's not quite right. I like this wording right here, but it was soon clear he was singing to a different tune. I just wanted to touch on that because we have a lot of kids in our classrooms that sing to different tunes. And I want to just emphasize it's okay, it's normal for kids to sing to a different tune. Remember that research, Gallup polls, surveys, GLSEN has them, NAMI has them, surveys show, and censuses and even anecdotal experiences that, and it depends on who you look. Conservative groups will say 3%, but at least they say there's a consistent percentage. And liberal groups who might say 10%. I think the number from most research that I've done is somewhere between 3 to 7%. And even the research shows it might vary between gay and lesbian. But there is a constant number of kids who often sing to a different tune, and they often express themselves differently, often having behaviors that don't match our gender stereotype of how we think boys and girls, quote unquote, should act. Tommy de la Paula wrote a book, Oliver Button is a sissy, and it reflects his childhood. Now he's out of the closet today, but he says when he was a child, it was, it was a secret. But he felt different. And this is his words. He said he didn't do the things boys should do. That's what he said. He liked to read. He liked to do art. He liked to dance. And there was pressure there to do sports. I too sang to a different tune when I was growing up. I remember when I came out of the closet, my brother said, "Did you notice when you came out of the closet, I didn't look surprised because when you were growing up, you always hung out with girls." So I just sang to a different tune. And I remember when I was 12, talking with my mom, I said, "Mom, I like cute things." I had short shorts on. I said, "I like my short shorts." A little TMI there. I like puppies. I was drinking from a small Coke bottle. I like little Coke bottles. And my mom's reaction was not a good one. She said, "Well, that's nice, honey, but just don't tell anybody." So she shamed my effeminacy. She shamed my singing to a different tune. I love my mom. God bless your mom. She's in heaven now. But don't shame your students. I had a senior. I've taught K through 12th grade for 30 years. When I was teaching high school, I had a student and had to write his IEP, his individual education plan. And I noticed the previous teacher had said something about his social developmental levels being abnormal. I don't think he used the word abnormal, maladaptive, because he hung out with mostly girls. He sang to a different tune, and that should not have been written in there. That's the microaggression. So yeah, we want to celebrate our students who sing to different tunes. And I remember lots of them. I remember a student, boy in third grade, he loved to wear his sister's puffy jacket, you know. And I don't know if he turned out gay, but he definitely was singing to a different tune, had behavior other than what the gender stereotype. I had another student, a boy in sixth grade, who did not want to play any of the sports, brought stuffed animals to school, hung out with the girls. And I think I told him his story in another video where he came to me and said, "Mr. C, they're calling me gay." You know, and I had a talk with his friends. It's just important to support your friends, especially if they're singing to a different tune, because when he gets to junior high, he might be teased and he'll need his friend's support. I had another student in sixth grade who was very effeminate. And I even wonder if he was telegraphing that he had those feelings by his effeminacy, because he was very outlandish with his effeminate mannerisms. But he came back in seventh grade. You know, a lot of students come back to say hi. Came back to say hi. He brought a couple of his girlfriends, girlfriend who are friends, and they said, "Mr. C," and I'm using a pseudonym here. They said, "Jason has a crush on the boy." Jason got all red and ran out of the class. But these students who sing to different tune, we have lots of them. I shared about the student who came to me and said, "Mr. C," is a girl, sixth grade. She said, I have the same problem you have. What do I do if my parents and I don't agree?" So, yeah, they're identifying in our classrooms. Trying to think, there was another student. Anyway, they're there. They are there. My nephew, hope he doesn't mind using his story, but around third grade, it was in the talent show doing a baton. That's when I knew. I thought, oh, he's probably LGBT. And of course, you don't know until a person tells you, but he's now married to a man, a very nice man. They're both wonderful people. My best friend, my former best friend, who's straight, I remember his son did drama. Because you're a male doing drama doesn't mean you're gay, but he was doing drama, hung out with his mom, didn't hang out with a lot of the boys. And I said to my best friend, I said, "Do you think your son might be LGBT? Because if he is, he's an adolescent. It would be important to talk with him about safety, safe sex, and HIV prevention." I mean, I was blunt. Better to be blunt than to be sorry, right? To find out later you didn't talk about these things with your teenage LGBT children, and then find out they acquired HIV, which used to be a death sentence. Now it's treatable, but it's not a pleasant thing to have, something most people would prefer not to have. And that friend of mine said, there's no way my son is LGBT. And then of course, 10 years later, 15 years later, I ran into him at a coffee shop that was frequented by a lot of LGBT, and there he was. And we went shopping, and he was telling me all about his partner, his gay partner. He is gay. So anyway, what is my point? It's just to celebrate these students who, I'm just looking at my notes, who sing to a different tune. Yeah, anyway, those were all the students I wanted to talk about. And here, dragon, gotta slay the dragon, wonderful illustrations, wonderfully written. Yeah, I want to talk about this. So here I can imagine some people criticizing the story, saying, "Hey, wait a minute, is elementary school really the place to talk about romance on either gay or straight? I mean, sides, is it really a place?" So I want to just address the double standards that are out there and go to this right here. When I went to the school board, I'm not going to play this, but just talk about it. I went to the school board in Modesto, and I said, "Hey, there's a discrepancy. I'm getting books from the library, children's library at our school, And we're doing reports on their favorite authors, and the books with heterosexual authors talk in detail about their heterosexual romances. So like Dr. Seuss will talk about, excuse me, scratching my nose, Dr. Seuss will talk about, in the book, will talk about his romance. He dated this young lady from high school. They stayed together in college. They got married, and, fairy tale life. Same with A. Milne, the author of Winnie the Pooh, talks about his romance with, I think it was Dorothy something and Daphne for short. Excuse me. But it talks about their heterosexuality with no shame, and it just as it should be. But then when it talks about Maurice Sendak, who was with uh, Glenn, I think it was his name, 50 years. He had a gay partner, 50 years. Dr. Eugene Glenn, who was a psychiatrist, he was an author, he was an artist. There's no mention of it. There's a censorship. And they portray these homosexual, these gay authors as if they're asexual, which they're not. And that puts out a message that there's something shameful about being homosexual. Same with Tommy de Paula, who wrote Straganoga. He wrote The Art Lesson. He wrote Oliver Button is a Sissy. And he's openly gay. He's openly gay. So Oliver Button, like I shared earlier, is a reflection of his growing up, feeling a little on the, I don't know if he'd use the word effeminate, but he, singing to a different tune. Already talked about that. So I want to go back to the slideshow, talk more about the slideshow. Romance in schools, we want to be consistent. You know what else I wanted to talk about with this? I wanted to talk about Senate Bill 48, California law, became effective January 1st, 2012. It added sexual orientation to a list of groups, minority groups that should be represented in the curriculum. And I just wanted to say it not only requires teachers to add contributions of LGBT people, as well as disabled and Pacific Islander and Asian and African American, Mexican. It added sexual orientation. Not only did it add right here, I think this is interesting, it prohibits instruction that reflects adversely on sexual orientation. So if you have a curriculum that reflects adversely on gay people, you're not allowed to do that. And that's what I think a lot of schools, like in that example of having books that express freely heterosexual relationships, but censors homosexual relationships, that's reflecting adversely on homosexuality. A lot of people think it's not a perversion. I'm not a pervert. Not a mental illness. We're not sinners. We're not criminals. That's all the myths that society has put on homosexuals. What are we then? We're a group of people. We discover that we have these feelings. This is a natural variation. One of my videos, I said natural deviation by mistake. A lot of people would say, yeah, there you go. It's not a natural deviation. It's a natural variation, like left-handedness. 100 babies, China, Africa, Costa Rica, wherever. You're going to, out of all those hundreds, you're always going to be around 5%, 7% that are going to identify later sometime in their life, 5 years, 10 years, 17, 20, whatever. They're going to discover they have same-sex attractions. Some of them will hide it. Some societies will harm you if you get caught expressing yourself. So it's natural. It's part of human nature. And it's a physiological response. So if I stand next to a woman, I'm not going to have the same response if I stand to an attractive man. Now I put attractive in there because, yeah, I'm not attracted to every man, just like heterosexual men are not attracted to every woman. All right. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the slideshow. Romance, lovely romance. All the townspeople, here's one to comment on PDA, public displays of affection. I'm sure some people look at this and probably feel uncomfortable. Unfortunately, in society, like I even experience, especially when I'm around mostly men, heterosexual men, like at my gym, my husband and I will be holding hands, we'll be being affectionate in our talk. I love you, this and that. What are we going to do later on? And all of a sudden, we're around a lot of men, and I feel society's conditioning to not be gay. And it's like and I find it hard sometimes to just naturally give my husband a hug or a kiss when other men are around, and it shouldn't be that way. So if you feel that, it's because society has conditioned. And I just want to be honest and transparent here. And I remember going to a family function, and my cousin, who's lesbian, brought her girlfriend, and her girlfriend's very, very butch. And I felt uncomfortable and I felt shame for that. I was like, wait a minute, this is silly. I'm gay. And I'm feeling uncomfortable because it's different. People are just uncomfortable around difference. If you're not used to something, and it was a long time ago. Now I've been around a lot of lesbian women, but if you're feeling a little uncomfortable, that's normal. That's normal. And I don't think it's homosexuality so much as it's just difference. Difference. I remember the first time a friend of mine said his husband, and in the sentence his, which is male, and husband, which is male, it was just so weird to me when I first heard it. Now it's very natural. And then on a TV program, I saw a gay couple going to a school to like a parent conference. I was like, this seems so weird to me then. Now it's not weird at all. So my point is that if you feel uncomfortable, I want to recognize that's normal, but don't let you stigmatize your students for that. Anyway, I've been talking a lot. I want to kind of bring this to an end. Let's look at my notes real fast. I shared that. This was the last thing I wanted to touch on, and then I'm done. When I was here, I'm a gay teacher, and I was following Senate Bill 48, presenting information on gay people that have contributed positively in our society. Harvey Milk, Bayard Rustin, Maurice Sendak. And I had an administrator coming down on me saying, hey, wait a minute. This Senate Bill 48 is supposed to focus on all minorities, and they're not focusing on disabled people. Even in the deposition, because I had filed a lawsuit with my former employer, and we went through our deposition phase, they were drilling me, like asking me, well, what did you teach about disabled people? I remember a friend of mine told me a story. He said, my friend John, he said, when I was in junior high in Pennsylvania, there was an African-American lady, and she kept telling us stories about civil rights for Black people. And she said, it was disproportionate. But he said, I got it. I understood that, that was her minority group. And there was an inequity in society, and she was wanting to bridge the gap in the inequity. He got it. He got it. So, me being gay and wanting to focus on LGBT people and exercise Senate Bill 48 in my class, there was nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there was nothing wrong with that. And I also noticed that, you can look up online, it's up here, Legal Information California Gov. You can see the dialogue that, in our house in California, we have a dual chamber. We have the Assembly and the Senate, and they both vote on bills like this. They both majority passed this bill in 2011, it came to law 2012. But in the discussion, here's one of the things that they discussed. It shows what they're talking about. It says, because of inequalities in our schools, and they mention here specifically LGBT, that they're a vulnerable population, and they're not. And I'm not saying disabled people aren't, but they weren't focusing on a lot of the other groups when they were talking about the law. So I think a big emphasis in the law was addressing the vulnerability of LGBT kids. in our classrooms. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to say thank you for listening. We read the story about the Prince tonight. We talked about some LGBT issues, PDAs, and romance discussion, being equitable in the classroom, kids who sing to a different tune and honoring them, not stigmatizing them. Anyway, thank you. I always like to end with a quote. The only perverse thing about homosexuality, the only thing really, is society's insane. It's insane. Insane inability to accept human nature. It's only human nature. Anyway, God bless. Thank you. Had a good time. I'll stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to figure out a way here. Shut down this meeting. Thank you. Take care.